Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to ask question number 164 to the Attorney General and Minister for Economy, Public Enterprises, Civil Service and Communications. One of the objectives of the civil service reforms is to recruit and retain qualified staff. So can the Minister advise the House as to what incentives are in place to be able to make the civil service attractive and compatible with the private sector? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the Honourable Member for this question, and I'm glad the Honourable Member is concerned and wants the civil service to be compatible with the private sector, as we've said on a number of occasions, Madam Speaker. To keep my questions brief, I think we need to look at what are the things that actually exist in the private sector first, to see how we are aligned with the private sector. So, Madam Speaker, the private sector always tries to implement very high service standards, and that's very, very critical. And they need to also provide incentives for the employees to constantly improve the service delivery to their customers. In our case, obviously, Madam Speaker, is we need to be able to provide high-level service through our civil servants to the 890,000 odd Fijians who actually want services from the civil servants. We also need to be able to constantly improve services. As the Honourable Minister Bala highlighted yesterday, they recognized there was a process delay. They're trying to improve it. They want to increase the turnaround times of applications, for example. That's part of what you need to constantly do. That's what the private sector does, as opposed to simply being used to the system you've inherited or have had for a number of years. We also need to create an environment that is conducive to productive work and excellent service delivery. So we need to, of course, Madam Speaker, we need to ensure that a number of other factors fall in place for that. You need to have the skill sets. In the private sector, they always go for the person with the right skill sets. And also you need to ensure that the persons are also remunerated accordingly. And we've said on a number of occasions, Madam Speaker, that we need to be able to recognize that in civil service. The mindset has been that we're very much driven by position descriptions. Not even descriptions, but in fact we're driven more by position titles. If you look at the private sector, you may have, for example, Madam Speaker, in a bank, a person who will work as a teller in a bank and may be there for the past 10 years. And they're simply dealing with receiving and giving out cash at the counter. But a person who may be actually dealing in a bank, who only 3 years out of probably university, may in fact be getting paid a lot more money than that person, than the teller, because they may be actually dealing in foreign exchange transactions. So in most banks, as you would know, have a locked up room where they actually buy and sell foreign exchange. The risk is very high. If the teller makes a mistake, you've got a couple of dollars that may be out of kilter. If this person makes a mistake, the exposure could be hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. As we've given on a number of occasions, the examples, for example, in this Parliament, Madam Speaker, with nurses. We have said, for example, the example we gave when we made ministerial statements, a nurse who's dealing in the cath lab and is actually helping, put those, I always forget the technical name, put the wire through and go up to your heart, see whether the heart is blocked or not, put a stent, and do the bubble thing. All those types of things, Madam Speaker, require particular skill sets. And we have those nurses in Fiji doing that. Under the old system, Madam Speaker, which we are reviewing, there is no distinction between that nurse who's doing that and who may be a senior nurse, and a senior nurse who may be actually working at the outpatients. Because they have the same title, they get the same salary. There is no recognition that the nurse working in the cath lab is actually performing a task that is a lot more onerous. If she makes a mistake, a person can die. If the nurse who, you go to the outpatient, if she makes a mistake and puts the plaster in the wrong place, you can actually move the plaster and put it in the right place. You cannot do that with the heart. So the private sector recognizes that, and that's what we also need to recognize in the civil service, which we are doing. The other thing, of course, Madam Speaker, is in the private sector, people actually get recruited on merit. And the recruitment process actually is very transparent. People get treated and recruited not based on who they are, where they come from, what province they belong to, who they know. They actually get recruited because they are the best person for their job. And unfortunately, that has not been happening in the civil service for decades. So this is why we have also implemented the OMRS system. Because ultimately, Madam Speaker, it's not about protecting necessarily the job of the person or getting the right person just because they're your relative or whoever it is. The idea is that we have the right person for the right job so that they deliver the best service to the 900,000 odd Fijians. The other thing, Madam Speaker, that is very critical in the private sector is that there needs to be a focus on positive management, which contributes to the creation of an environment that is conducive to productive work. Now, we, of course, if you see the various changes we've made, moving away from punitive and reactive management and supervision towards the reliable, autonomous employees that can be held accountable for achieving the specific outcomes. The private sector provides such an environment through continuous feedback to the staff, ultimately holding employees responsible for the achievement of their ministry and individual goals. The other thing that the private sector does do, Madam Speaker, is to implement a consistent and fair system of upskilling and training of civil servants. We must constantly train our civil servants. We must ensure that the most meritorious of them actually go overseas. They actually learn. When ministers go, they need to take some of the civil servants with them, the staff with them. When a training offer comes, it should not be the director only of that particular ministry going, or the PS, the deputy PS. Honorable Bande would know about that. We need to ensure that the right people go, that we actually build the capacity in the people below you. So we have a good succession planning. So training is very, very important. And if you see the various reforms that have been rolled out in the past 18 months and continue to get rolled out, we have a huge focus on training. The Ministry of Civil Service is building up the cadre of people who provide the training. So, Madam Speaker, this is actually what happens in the private sector. And this is precisely what we are focused on. Of course, the private sector remunerates people, as I said, on the correct basis. We carried out, Madam Speaker, as also reported to this Honourable Parliament, we carried out firstly, we carried out the, let me just tell you, the compensation benchmark survey that was carried out last year, where we compared the salary rates of people in the civil service and compared it to those people who were in the private sector. And we saw that obviously, as I highlighted to this Honourable Parliament previously, that at the intake level, the civil servants seem to be getting a lot better paid. And this, permanent, in the private sector, they're below that. But as the years go by, the civil service salary structures go down and the private sector actually goes up. So we have a problem, a lot of problems in the middle management division and those on the top. Of course, we also recognize you cannot always compare the civil service with the private sector in all the different professions, because you do not necessarily have enough of a pool of people to benchmark yourself against. For example, there's not many institutions that employ people in the private sector as nurses. There's not many people, for example, in the private sector that employ people as teachers. So we need to be able to compare and look at other benchmarking from other countries, and that's precisely what we've done. The other point, of course, Madam Speaker, is that in the civil service, the old structure, there's not necessarily any demarcation between the level of qualification a person has. So if you, for example, were deemed to be a dentist, so even though, or a dental therapist, so even though I may get, for example, a certificate and get that position, and somebody who may actually have a degree and gets that position, we get the same salary. So one may have had 6 months of training or 1 year of training, the other may have had 4 years of training. But there's no distinction between them. So we need to be able to encourage people to get further qualifications. And one of the ways of doing that, of course, is the person who may have a certificate, just because they have the same title, does not mean they should get the same salary as a person who spent 4 or 5 years and probably getting more specialized. So the whole point of this, as we do it in the private sector, is that we are able to recognize the skill sets and the qualifications that different individuals bring. So that is very, very important. And that's precisely, actually, Madam Speaker, is what is happening. Thank you.
Supplementary questions? Honourable Rangarawa.
Madam Speaker, if the civil servants are listening, and if there's a prize to be given to someone that does not answer that question, it will definitely go to the Honourable Minister for Civil Service. The question asked on what incentives are in place.
What would you like? I find that statement unparliamentary. Would you like to withdraw that statement? Withdraw the statement?
Withdraw, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
The question is on incentives, and incentives has a very sharp link on pay and performance. And those are the kind of incentives that the Honourable Minister should have highlighted. If the incentives given to the Permanent Secretary in terms of their pay and the pay discrimination that is in place, what measures is in place to be able to bring up the pays of the civil service so that it comes closer to that of the Permanent Secretary? And if the pay of the doctors have been implemented in a pay rise, how long will it take for the other members of the other classifications in the civil service to also be given that same kind of reward? Incentives talks about rewards, and the Honourable Minister was just talking about improving the processes. No, please, can you just answer what incentives are in place in terms of pay and in terms of non-cash benefits that could be given to the civil servants instead of just talking about it? It's almost 4 years now, you're still talking about it. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Honourable Speaker, I really get flabbergasted by Honourable Randrondo's interventions and supplementary questions. We have on 2 separate occasions in this Parliament given 2 separate ministerial statements, including in the 2016 budget statement, including in the 2016 and 17 budget about the civil service reforms. We have, Madam Speaker, also highlighted that we have carried out the benchmarking with the private sector, and we've also said in February of this year the current exercise we're involved in, and that is the remuneration evaluation. I've already said this to this House. And yesterday when I mentioned it, they said, oh yeah, vote buying, elections coming around. I don't know whether she was here or not. I think the line in front of her actually made that comment. The fact of the matter is, Madam Speaker, she simply is not understanding either, or she is trying to actually obfuscate over what we are saying, or trying to do some kind of political point scoring with maybe some civil servants she's talking about, or with. Madam Speaker, the fact of the matter is this. Anybody that wants to carry out a civil service reform in a civil service that has had no substantive reform since independence, obviously it will take time because you need to do it well. You need to do it properly, Madam Speaker, and you need to take the right steps. Because they would be the first persons who will actually come running and say, oh, this XYZ is wrong. But we're not here to please them. We're actually here to please, firstly, the people we're here to please are all the citizens of Fiji, who are the beneficiaries of the services provided by civil servants. Number 2, as an employer of choice, we want to become an employer of choice. We want to ensure that we provide the right environment for the civil servants. Remuneration is one aspect of it. Training, exposure, and being able to know that if I apply for a job in the civil service, I'll be treated equally. I'll be treated on a merit base. You have the Honourable Minister for Education talking about the civil service where people are managing millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars without the right qualifications. Then on the other hand, we are talking about this money, about the Fijian people's money that we've been entrusted to these people. How well are they managing it? Of course, you need the right people to manage that, people with the right qualifications. So there are various assessments being taken out of the respective ministries. That's one aspect of the reform. The other aspect of the reform is benchmarking the salaries, comparing it. Then be able to say, okay, this is where we are at. Now let's look at the entire civil service. When we made this announcement in February, we actually highlighted which divisions of labor of the profession will be done first, second, third, fourth, and that will be delivered by August. We said that already in February. We said it last year. But she's again trying to have some form of amnesia about it. The reality is, Madam Speaker, we've said this so many times. The reality is, Madam Speaker, we have said that there will be a assessment. The reality, you see, if you listen to the intervention.
Honourable Member, I'm not even listening to the intervention.
Okay, thank you, Madam
Do not
Speaker.
respond to
I hope nobody else is listening to those interventions, seriously. Madam Speaker, the reality is, Madam Speaker, that every civil servant, the profession, their salary structure is being reviewed. Some of it has already been done, some of it are actually being done. You see, I actually really don't need to listen to those interventions because they really don't know what they are talking about, frankly. They really don't know. As Honourable, using Honourable Prasad's words, who's not here, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. Now, Madam Speaker, the salary review is currently being carried out. It will, of course, be factored in when we've already made this announcement. We've already made this announcement. I'm not going to repeat it 20 times over. It's already made an announcement. We are currently training people. We've already had training sessions. We've had supervisors who've gone and who are carrying out assessments as to how the salary structure needs to be changed. There are literally thousands of people who are being graded. Literally thousands of people who are actually carrying out this process. You see, unlike you, we don't do a dodgy job. We actually do a good job. We actually do a good job. The dodginess is part of the culture, Madam Speaker. What we need to do is, this government's culture is to do things properly. This government's culture is to do things on a sustained basis. This government's culture is to modernize, not to pander to the whims of one or two people just for their political point scoring. That's precisely what we are doing. That's precisely what will happen, Madam Speaker. And you will see that the civil servants of Fiji, who maybe one or two may be going to them and saying we're going to pay rise, they will actually be very happily glad and satisfied we've carried this out. And they won't be.
Thank you.